been mates with a guy from school for about 20 years. And when I wrote my list, I was like, this guy's one of my best mates. I was like, does he like me? Like, he's never said he likes me. Sometimes when we hang out, it's quite hard to work that out because of the way men relate to each other. He certainly isn't, on my case, organizing stuff all the time. And I'm not doing that to him. He probably has no idea I like him. And I think that's also part of the loneliness, is going, my friendships don't feel like friendships. So here's another quote from someone I spoke to, which I kind of gets at this. This person said, I've never felt like my best friend's best friend, right? I've never felt like my best friend's best friend, which I think is interesting. And so we maybe get into how sometimes blokes think about their friendships. And this is not all bad. So I'm not saying, because I think male friendships are quite unique often, and their uniqueness does not necessarily make them bad in themselves, but in excess they can be like that. And I think men often think of friendship as like the fourth emergency service. So you speak to blokes and they'll be like, oh yeah, well my best mate's Gareth. And I'll tell you what, if the shit hits the fan, he'll be here in an instant. At 4 a.m, he'll be at my door. What do you need? But then you say, well, when did the last time you saw Gareth? It's like, well, we don't really speak.
It's really true. I've got friends from school who in my head, are my friends. But yet, when was the last time I spoke to them? A year ago? Maybe even more so.
Yeah. And sometimes that's okay, because life sometimes gets in the way. And actually some research I looked at from a guy called Robin Dunbar, who we might touch on again later, his research is very clear. There is a direct relationship between time and friendships. It's a use it or lose it situation. So, and it's very clear that he talks about different layers of friendships. You've got your innermost layer of about 5 people, then another 10 sort of people you hang out with the most, and they kind of go out in multiples of 3. If you can visualize that, I think we can kind of relate to that, but also it's shown in the research, in the data. If you don't spend a certain amount of time with different, and it's different for each layer, they just move up the layers. So people in year 5, I think you've got to speak to them or see them once a week. And if you don't do that for long enough, they go up to your next layer, et cetera, et cetera. And the ones in the outer layers require less time. So if you're not showing up, you're not spending time, it's just a fact. You will drift in closeness. Now, something that does resist that is friendships that maybe you spent a lot of time with when you were younger, with intense period of time. They seem to be more resilient in the research. And I think anecdotally, we can all think of someone that we haven't seen for ages, but if we saw them tomorrow, we'd pick it up and it'd be great. So that's fine. But I think we can't use that as an opt-out of confronting the fact that really we don't see our friends enough. And the friends we do see, sometimes they don't feel like friendships.
Sure. That just reminds me of this quote by Jordan Peterson. He says, the crisis of male loneliness. I can't do the accent, but
That's fine.
I want to, but I can't. The crisis of male loneliness is one aspect of the broader struggle of men in modern society. It's incumbent on each man to seek out and forge meaningful relationships. Exactly what you're just saying, talking about personal responsibility, actually creating the actual conditions to actually go out. Don't let it fall to you. Don't let the friendships fall like they did when we were kids, right? When we were teenagers. And I saw something in the book that you wrote about as well around sport. And for me, being the only thing I really was good at school was sport. So leaving school for me was actually traumatic with a small t. It wasn't like something that someone's going to go to prison for, but it was something actually I ended up writing in The Independent about, was actually the trauma that I only realized about 10 years later in actually a counseling session, that me leaving that team environment was leaving the person that I was. And suddenly I was, that team guy, always looking out for one another, part of this brotherhood. And suddenly I was on my own, and it was just so lonely. And I think that's where schools didn't actually create the conditions to actually create, a strong amount of resilience for young men to go out into the world.